In single-family dwellings, the definition of a riser generally refers to a cable run that traverses a fire-rated barrier separating distinct levels within the structure. This typically encompasses pathways such as from the basement to the living area, from the living area to the attic, or extending from the basement, passing through the living area, and ultimately reaching the attic. It is important to note that the National Electrical Code, or NEC, does not provide a definition of penetrating more than one floor that is specific to residential dwellings. Instead, the classification is determined by whether the cable run passes through fire-rated barriers that delineate different levels of the building, irrespective of the total number of floors. For single-floor homes, the following cable runs would be considered risers. Firstly, the cable run from the basement to the living space. Secondly, the cable run from the attic to the living space. And thirdly, the cable run that runs from the basement through the living space to the attic. The definition of what constitutes a riser is important because the National Electrical Code, in section 725.61, stipulates requirements for Class 2 and Class 3 wiring, specifically mandating the use of riser-rated cables for vertical runs that penetrate more than one floor. This requirement is based on safety considerations related to fire spread within a building. Riser-rated cables are designed to resist the spread of fire from one floor to another, providing a crucial safety measure in case of a fire. The 725.61 section of the National Electrical Code does not explicitly define the term riser itself, but it implies that a riser is a vertical cable run that penetrates more than one floor. The specific requirements for riser-rated cables are outlined in other sections of the NEC, such as 800.154 for communications cables and 725.135 for Class 2 and Class 3 cables. These sections specify the types of cables that are permitted for riser applications, as well as the installation requirements. For example, 800.154 requires that communications cables installed in risers be listed as riser cables or be installed in a metal raceway or a fire-rated shaft. 725.135 specifies that Class 2 and Class 3 cables installed in risers must be listed as riser cables or be installed in a metal raceway or a fire-rated shaft. A 16-inch on-center stud cavity is not generally considered a riser by itself. However, if the cable run passes through multiple stud bays and also penetrates a fire-rated barrier between levels, it would then be classified as a riser. It is critical to consult local building codes and the latest edition of the National Electrical Code for specific requirements in the relevant jurisdiction. These regulations provide detailed guidelines on electrical installations, including the proper use of riser-rated cables. Therefore, in single-family dwellings, any cable run that traverses a fire-rated barrier separating different levels of the house is classified as a riser and must be installed according to the NEC requirements specified for riser-rated cables in section 725.61. This includes pathways extending from the basement to the living space, from the attic to the living space, or those traversing from the basement through the living space and up to the attic.